The New York Times bestselling book Atomic Habits states, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." If that's true, then your home, your environment, is a physical reflection of those votes. It's a constant, unspoken ballot box, reinforcing or sabotaging the identity that you're trying to step into. Your space isn't just where you live, it's constantly shaping who you are, whether intentionally or not. So let's take a closer look at how your space shapes your identity, who you are, and who you're becoming. We like to think that our choices shape our environment, and that's true, but it actually works both ways. Our environments are impacting the state of our minds and the thoughts that we continue to have, and the actions and habits that we continue to stick to or not stick to every single day. These things send subconscious messages about who you are, what you prioritize, and what you're even able to access and follow through with. If your space is cluttered and just chaotic and overwhelming, it's feeding this sense of mental clutter too, which I did a deeper dive on in the last 2 episodes. If your space is streamlined and intentional, it's reinforcing clarity and purpose. So this isn't about aesthetics or tidiness for the sake of it, it's really about alignment. I have a video here that goes into a deeper dive on creating a space that's in alignment. But when your space reflects the identity that you want to embody, you'll find that your actions naturally follow. So if you want to be someone who values movement, your space should make it easy to move. Like maybe have an open area on the floor for stretching, or keep your sneakers by the door so that you're going on more walks. Maybe even a yoga mat that isn't buried in the closet under like a ton of blankets. If you want to be a reader, your home should look like a reader's home. You should have some kind of book within reach or a cozy reading spot that really invites you and encourages you to sit down with a novel instead of mindlessly scrolling through your phone. And of course, you don't have to be like a book hoarder in order to represent yourself as a reader. Or if you want to be a person who cooks more at home, your kitchen should make that easy. Make sure that you have clear counters and tools that you actually use and can easily access, or a refrigerator that isn't a graveyard of expired condiments. Think about designing a space that casts votes for your ideal future self. On the flip side, when your space is working against you, it creates friction in the identity that you're trying to build. If every time you try to cook, you have to go clean the kitchen and you're overwhelmed by the cluttered cabinets and all the pans that have scrapes on them to where you can't find a good one to use, takeout becomes an easier choice. Your environment can either be a tool for your habits or an obstacle to them. And that resistance adds up. Every small bit of friction makes it that much harder to follow through. So think about making your life 1% more difficult or 1% easier. Your goal's 1% less likely to be achieved with every little piece of friction that you're maybe unintentionally laying out in your space. So how do you shift your space to align with the person you want to become? Well, you can start with these 3 steps. The first is to get clear on who you're becoming. Who is it that you're trying to become? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Do you want to be healthier, more creative, more present? Your space can be tailored to be a spot for family socialization, building deeper ties and relationships to your kids, to your partner. When you're intentional about those things, you'll find that you start coming up with all kinds of ideas and all kinds of changes or friction and obstacles that are currently in your space that are keeping you from being able to build those deeper connections. If you want to have family dinners every night, well, that's likely going to start with having a clear dining room, a dining table that's not a dumping ground for everybody's bags and random stuff when they walk in the door, or, chairs that are comfortable to sit in, something that encourages people to look at each other. Even the direction of our furniture can either encourage conversation and connection or focus and isolation. And really, there are times for both. You need to have a little bit of both in your life. There are times when you're going to need to focus and you want to have that space in your home where you can really disconnect from everything around you, get centered, get focused. And there are other spaces and other times where you maybe need to be a little more intentional with being open and inclusive and inviting to other people in your home. Do you want to feel more in control and in charge of your time? Like more mentally organized, like you're not rushing around and running late for every appointment, and you have the confidence to sit down and have the meeting with the client without feeling like maybe you're in the wrong place or why should they listen to you? That can start with your environment. Create a space that feels composed and organized and reflects what a confident person's space would likely reflect. If you were to step into a random space that was not your own, what would you imagine that a confident person's space would look like? So get clear on who you're becoming, whoever that is. Number 2 is to walk through your space like you are a visitor. So again, I mentioned if you were to step into a space that was not your own, what would you expect that space to feel like if it belonged to a confident person? Well, on the flip side of that, if you were to walk through your own space with fresh stranger eyes, who would you think that space reflects? I mean, maybe your space is already in line with that and you're like, I've got this. But if you don't feel that way, well, what do you think would immediately stand out to a stranger as being the opposite of what you're trying to embody in your space? Would a stranger be able to tell what you prioritize? Would they guess that you're somebody who loves fitness, for example? Or would they assume that you're a person who probably works too much, maybe is a little scattered and never really has time to exercise? Or is the dent in your sofa like so deep that they would clearly identify that you're a couch potato and a person who likes to lounge on the couch? Like, look for the little things that really just don't match who you want to be and then make adjustments accordingly. And the number 3, which I think is probably the most important part, make it easy to be that person. You want to reduce the friction and even put reminders in place so that you're going above and beyond for yourself to set yourself up for success. You know, I'm putting together this big virtual summit right now, and I have just so many tools and pages and PDFs and emails and links that are going out to my speakers, like every little link or line of information that they could possibly need or use to be successful in this event, because that's what I want for them and for the event, is so over-prepared. Like, my goal is to over-support them, to give them more information, repetition, to where it would be very difficult for them to fail at what they're needing, to access from me to have a wonderful presentation. What if you treated yourself like that? What if you treated your space like that and went above and beyond to give yourself, through your space, more reminders, more incentive, more hand-holding than you think you could ever possibly need? It would be really difficult to fail, right? If you want to drink more water, and you shove all of the soda to the back of the refrigerator behind the gallons of milk and heavy things that you're going to have to shuffle through, and you get this shiny water bottle that you really enjoy looking at, and you fill it with fresh water and you set it right next to you, and you have reminders going off on your phone saying drink water every couple of hours. I mean, you're going to have to literally be trying to fail to not drink that water. If you want your family to hang out in the living room together and just enjoy each other's company and chatting it up, playing games or whatever, and you align all of the furniture to where it's kind of facing each other, it feels cozy, throw in some throw blankets and throw pillows, maybe a nice rug to kind of pull the whole space together so that it just really beckons you to the center of it. Maybe even add a bowl of snacks that everybody really loves, and put on some fresh smells that everybody in your home actually likes and is going to be drawn to. Like, somebody is going to have to physically go in there and move one of the pieces of furniture. Talk about friction, right? Move one of the pieces of furniture to face the TV or somewhere else, or to not look at you or be a part of what's going on. Now, I mean, if you're talking about a bunch of different personalities, maybe that doesn't work every time, but you can see how making it as easy as possible, like over-explaining what the intention of the space is way more likely to get you the result that you want, as opposed to having friction. None of the furniture is facing each other. There's nothing calling people to congregate in that space, and it becomes this isolated space for maybe one person to sit on their laptop while everybody else goes somewhere else. Every 1% matters. It doesn't have to be something as big and grand as redesigning your living room or moving a bunch of furniture. If you want to eat healthier, something as simple as putting a bowl of fruit on the counter instead of having bags of potato chips that are easily accessible can make a huge difference. If you want to be more creative, maybe have a sketch pad or craft supplies that are visible, that are really just inviting you to jump in and play instead of hidden in the back of the closet. And there are ways that you can do that without cluttering up your environment, especially if you're really intentional about that space. If you're intentionally choosing for a space to be a creative, inspiring space, Well, then you're not also throwing all of these other intentions onto it. One space shouldn't hold like 10 different intentions because then you start getting cluttered because you're trying to fit all of these intentions in one space. So really try to get intentional with who is it that you're wanting to be, what that space would look like. And then you can go to the next layer of, okay, now what do I want the intention for my spaces independently to be? Tiny changes, huge impact. Your environment should be setting you up for success, not making everything that you're trying to accomplish harder. Your space is already shaping you, your daily actions, your habits, and ultimately your identity. The question is it doing that intentionally or by default? Because when you design your space with intention, you're designing your future self, one small environmental shift at a time. If you are a modern mom, and by that I mean a mom in this generation, you've got kids at home, I've got a big event coming up that's all about helping you to reimagine your space, to find simplicity, inspiration, and just really awesome systems that'll help you to function better at home. So I don't have a registration page open yet, but I just want you to be aware and open your eyes and ears to it. If you want to go ahead and get on my email list so that you're sure to be notified when it opens next week, you can join through my free resource library, which is miadanielle.com/freebies. And then bonus, you'll get a ton of free content at the same time. Otherwise, registration opens next week, and I'll chat with you then.